Good evening, everyone. Tonight I would like to start with a short quote from St. Augustine. The quote says that the world is a book and those who do not travel read only one page. So let me ask you, how many of you actually, besides just traveling, maybe lived abroad or study abroad for extended period of time? I guess I wouldn't count our international students since you are living abroad right now. Tonight, I would like to actually share with you a little bit about my passion, which is travel, living abroad, and all it leads to culture immersion. So I would like to tell you what cultural immersion is, how I got it to experience it, and what it actually taught me. In today's world, it is a global world, therefore any experience from abroad, I think, is essential. According to an article by Jane Finley and colleagues published in Journal of the Academy of Business Education, researchers agree that students' critical thinking and decision-making skills are enhanced through exposure to new cultures. I come from the Czech Republic, and I actually got to travel extensively in Europe. I visited most of the European countries, but on top of that, I got to travel for about 6 months in India and Nepal. I lived for 2 years in England, and for the past 7 years, I've been living and studying here in the United States. So let's first talk about what cultural immersion actually is. I was for a while looking for a definition, and not even Wikipedia had one, but then I found one on the Institute of International Education website, and they say that, according to the website, the definition is that that culture immersion is a sojourner's engagement with an interaction in a host culture with the goal of extensive involvement with host culture. The way I view culture immersion is pretty much learning a culture through living abroad. Now that you understand a little bit more what culture immersion is, let me talk about how I got to experience it. There is many ways that you can pretty much experience culture immersion. However, I chose to become an au pair. For me, number one, it was a cheap way to go abroad and spend more time there. As an au pair, I got to live with a family. They provided room and board in exchange for childcare. First, I went to England. Not only I got to live with the family and first-hand experience the way of living in abroad and the culture, but I also got to learn a new language. The second time I went to the United States, where I wanted to improve my English, and also being an au pair was the only way I could pretty much afford to go and live in the US for a longer time and get to see the country. There are other ways that you can experience culture immersion, which would be either through study abroad or possibly being an expatriate working for a multinational company. According to an Institute of International Education website, study abroad by United students actually rose in 2009, with more students going to less traditional countries, and the numbers will continue to increase. The other way I got to experience culture immersion was actually through extensive travel in India. When I went to India, I didn't get to live with a family for the entire time, but we traveled around. But for a few days, actually, when we were in the Indian Himalayas, a family offered us to stay with them, which was amazing to me, because you just got to learn so much through that. It was a small village the electricity would be running there for 2 hours a day, which is, I don't think that any of us really know what it means. And also, in India, they have the caste system, and because the family that let us stay with them came from a higher caste system, they definitely warned us that we can talk to anyone we want, but we cannot, for example, accept an invitation from anyone else to eat with other people, just because if we ate with someone from a lower caste, then we would not be able to stay with them anymore. This was something completely new to me. I knew about the caste system, however, the way how it works and how all live in it was amazing. Now, since I told you a couple of ways that I got to experience cultural immersion, let me tell you a little bit more about what it taught me. There were a few things that it taught me about myself, and number one would be that being alone doesn't matter. Being alone, actually, I view it as an advantage, because if you're alone, you are more open to the experience. If you go and study abroad and you hang out only with your friends from the same country, you're not necessarily learning the new language, you're not learning that much about the culture. It also taught me a lot about other people. I got to learn how other people view, for example, Czech Republic. Until now, even though Czech Republic has not been Czechoslovakia for the past 20 years, people still call it Czechoslovakia. I would have people to ask me if Czechoslovakia is actually part of the Soviet Union, which it never was. I just realized how little people know and how much I got to share and how much I can learn from them. And also, lastly, I would like to tell you how it changed my view of the world. And recently, during my recent interview with Maria Villalobos, who is an assistant professor in the language department here at Rider University, even though we come from a very different cultural backgrounds, I have to say that we got to share almost the same experience. She comes from Colombia, she lived in the United States, she's been living in the United States, she lived and studied in England and traveled to other places as well. And one thing that she said is that leaving brings you a completely new perspective, and I had to agree with her, because once you leave your country, you are pretty much out of the sheltered, you are not anymore sheltered from the realities of the world, and you get to see how other people view that and learn from it. So let me just summarize what I told you tonight. You learn a little bit more about what is cultural immersion, how I got to experience cultural immersion, and also what it taught me. So let me get back to St. Augustine, as I really enjoyed the quote. And once again, the world is a book, and those who do not travel read only one page. Thank you for your attention.